My wife cheated with my best friend. When he finally told me the truth and I confronted her, she begged me for a second chance, but I handed her divorce papers and walked away without looking back. My name is Daniel 28M. My wife Emma 25F was the person I trusted the most. I believed she would never hurt me, and I thought our marriage was strong. But everything changed the moment my best friend, the one I had known since childhood, told me the truth about what had been happening behind my back. My life looked normal from the outside. I had a stable job, a small but comfortable home, and a marriage that I believed was built on love and trust. I had known my best friend Michael since we were teenagers. He was the kind of person I could call at any hour of the night, and he would show up without asking questions. Because of that bond, I never once thought he could betray me, and I certainly never imagined that my wife would be the reason he looked at me with guilt in his eyes one evening. It happened on a regular Tuesday. I was sitting at my desk finishing some work when Michael called me. His voice sounded different, not like his normal self. He asked me to meet him at a small cafe away from our neighborhood. I could feel the uneasiness in his tone, but I had no idea that meeting would change everything I knew about my life. When I got there, he was already sitting at a corner table, his hands shaking as he tried to hold his coffee cup. He looked straight at me and said words that still echo in my head. "Daniel, I need to tell you something about Emma." At first, I thought maybe she had asked him for a favor, or maybe he knew about a surprise she was planning for me. But his expression was too heavy for something small. He took a deep breath and told me that he and Emma had been seeing each other behind my back. The world around me felt like it stopped moving. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I could not even hear the sounds of the cafe anymore. It was like my entire reality shattered in one sentence. I wanted to stand up and hit him, to scream at him for destroying the trust we built over years of friendship. But something in his voice stopped me. He was not proud. He was not smiling. He was not defending himself. Instead, he looked broken. He said he could not carry the guilt any longer. He said every time he saw me, he felt like the worst person in the world. And that was the first time I realized that betrayal did not always come with a smile or a victory. Sometimes it came with tears and regret, but that did not make the wound any less painful. When I drove home that evening, my hands shook on the steering wheel. I kept replaying his words in my head. I wanted to believe it was a lie, that maybe he was confused, that somehow there was another explanation. But deep down, I knew. I had seen small signs before. Emma smiling at her phone a little too much, her excuses for coming home late, the nights she said she was tired and turned away from me. I ignored it because I trusted her more than I trusted my own eyes. When I walked into the house, Emma was sitting on the couch watching television. She smiled at me like nothing was wrong. My heart pounded in my chest as I looked at her, knowing the truth now sat between us like a dark shadow. I sat down across from her and asked straightforward, "Emma, is there something you want to tell me?" First, she looked confused. Then, when she saw the look in my eyes, her expression changed. She knew that I knew. She tried to deny it for a minute, but when I told her Michael had already confessed, her face went pale, and she could not hold back the tears. She fell apart in front of me, crying, saying she was sorry, saying it meant nothing, saying she still loved me. She begged me over and over again to give her a second chance. She said we could fix it, that couples go through hard times, that we could start fresh. But as I looked at her kneeling on the floor, tears streaming down her face, I realized something inside me had already died. The trust was gone, and once trust is gone, love feels empty. I did not yell. I did not throw anything. I simply walked to the bedroom, opened the drawer, and pulled out the papers I had prepared after leaving the cafe. I had already decided on my drive home that I would not stay with someone who chose to betray me with my closest friend. When I placed the divorce papers on the table in front of her, she looked at them in shock. She begged again, holding onto my arm, but I pulled away. For the first time in our marriage, I felt stronger than her tears. I looked at her one last time and said, "I deserve better." Then I walked out of that house without looking back. When I stepped out of that house, the cool night air hit my face like a wave of reality. My heart was still beating hard, and my legs felt heavy, But at the same time, I felt a strange kind of freedom I had not felt in a long time. For years I had been living in a bubble where I thought my marriage was safe. But that bubble was gone now, and with every step I took away from that door, I accepted that life would never be the same again. I sat inside my car for a while before starting the engine. My phone buzzed again and again with messages from Emma. She wrote things like, "Please come back. We can fix this. I made a mistake. And don't do this to us." I looked at those words, but they felt empty. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying something hurtful in an argument. A mistake is not sleeping with my best friend repeatedly and then coming home to act like nothing was wrong. That was a choice she made, and a choice always comes with a price. Driving through the streets that night, my mind went back to all the memories we shared. Our wedding day when she smiled at me like I was the only man in the world. The vacations we took where we laughed until our stomachs hurt. The nights we stayed up talking about our dreams for the future. I could not understand how the same woman who once looked at me with such love could also be the one to break me in such a deep way. It was almost like I had been married to a stranger this whole time. When I reached a small motel on the edge of town, I parked and walked inside to get a room. The receptionist looked at me and asked if I was okay. I almost laughed because how could I explain to a stranger that my entire life had just collapsed? I simply nodded and took the key. In that room, sitting alone on the bed, I finally allowed myself to cry. Not because I wanted Emma back, but because I had lost the life I thought I had. The pain was not just about betrayal. It was about the death of a future I had once believed in. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I told him everything and asked what steps I needed to take to make the divorce official. He was calm and professional, explaining the process, but his words felt distant to me. All I could think about was that my marriage was not ending because we grew apart or because we could not communicate. It was ending because she chose someone else over me, and not just anyone. She chose the one person I considered my brother. That kind of betrayal cuts deeper than anything else. When I finally returned to the house to collect some of my things, Emma was there waiting. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She ran toward me, hugging me, saying we could go to therapy, that she would do anything to prove her love. But her words were like echoes in an empty hall. They did not reach my heart anymore. I told her clearly, "Emma, this is over. You made a choice, and now I am making mine." She tried to argue, but when she saw the determination in my eyes, she realized nothing she said would change my mind. Michael tried calling me too. He left voicemails saying he was sorry, that he had destroyed not only our friendship but also my trust in everyone. I did not answer him. What could I say? That I forgive him? That I would pretend nothing happened? No, some lines once crossed can never be uncrossed. He was dead to me now, just like she was. I deleted his number from my phone, just as I had removed Emma from my heart. Days turned into weeks, and slowly the pain started to shift. At first, it was sharp, like a knife in my chest every time I woke up and remembered the truth. But with time, it became a dull ache, a reminder that I survived something that could have broken me completely. Friends reached out, some offering support, some sharing their own stories of betrayal. And in those conversations, I realized I was not alone. Many people had walked through similar fires, and many had come out stronger on the other side. Emma continued to send messages for months. She wrote about how empty her life felt without me, how she regretted everything, how she could not sleep knowing I hated her. But by then, I had already learned a valuable truth. Forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. I could forgive her for myself, for my peace, but that did not mean I would ever take her back. She had destroyed the trust, and without trust, a relationship is nothing but a shell. One evening, about 6 months later, I walked past the same cafe where Michael had told me the truth. For a moment, I stood outside, remembering the pain of that day. But then something surprised me. I did not feel broken anymore. I felt strong. That cafe was no longer a place where my world ended. It was a place where my new life began. Months passed, and slowly my life found a new balance. The pain that once controlled my every thought began to fade into the background. I realized that healing was not about forgetting what happened, but about learning to live beyond it. I started going to the gym, spending time with friends who truly cared about me, and exploring hobbies I had ignored during my marriage. Each small step forward reminded me that life did not end the night I walked away. It only changed direction. Emma tried reaching out a few more times. Her messages turned from begging to anger, and then to silence. I think she finally understood that I was serious, that there was no way back for us. As for Michael, I never spoke to him again. Whatever guilt he carried was his burden to bear, not mine. For me, both of them became nothing more than lessons, painful lessons, but lessons that made me wiser. The divorce was finalized a few months later. When I signed the last paper, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was not the future I once dreamed of, but it was a fresh start. I walked out of that office feeling lighter, as if for the first time in years I could breathe without a shadow hanging over me. I did not feel lonely, I felt free. One evening, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset. For the first time in a long while, I smiled genuinely. I thought about everything I had been through. The betrayal, the tears, the sleepless nights, the anger, and the final goodbye. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes life breaks you in order to rebuild you stronger. I was no longer the man who trusted blindly, who ignored red flags, who let love blind him. I was someone new, someone who knew his worth. If there is one thing my story teaches, it is that you do not have to stay where you are not respected. Love means nothing without loyalty. And when someone shows you who they truly are, believe them the first time. Walking away hurts, but staying broken hurts even more. I walked away, and I never looked back. Like and subscribe for more stories.